All right, so this video will discuss homework 12 on adjective clauses. So adjective clauses began with section 5.1, where actually we had to distinguish phrases from clauses. So remember, we've looked at a lot of phrases, participial phrases, gerund phrases, noun phrases, appositive phrases, prepositional phrases, and those things are important to the sentence structure, but they are not clauses, meaning they do not have a subject and a verb. So in number 6, we can see that number 6 is a clause because it does have a subject, the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes, and it does have a verb, spoke. Number 7, however, is a phrase. So this is a prepositional phrase along with the Germanic language. So we have a preposition plus the noun phrase, but there is no verb, so this is a phrase, not a clause. Number 8, whether it was the subject, object of a preposition, and so on. So we have a subject, it, and we have a verb, was. So this is a clause. Number 9, very little literacy. So we have a noun, literacy, but there's not a subject and a verb in here. This is just a noun phrase describing something. 10, that it would have to be taught today as a foreign language. We have a subject, it, and we have a verb, would have to be. So notice with the clause, it would have to be taught today as a foreign language. That could stand alone as a sentence, but because it adds the word that, it becomes a dependent clause. So in 5.2, the book asks us to identify the adjective clauses in these sentences. So we can see in number 6, there's a great deal of research that documents language change. So these are somewhat simple to identify. It will become more challenging later in the chapter when you have to determine whether that clause is an adjective, adverb, or noun clause. So if you look at this, think about it and notice, well, this is answering that essential adjective question of which type of research, what kind. So what kind of research is it? It's research that documents language change. Number 7, again, we have the adjective clauses that are thousands of years old. But again, we can see that essential adjective question. It is difficult to reconstruct those. Those what? Those that are thousands of years old. So notice, we'll see later that this cannot be a noun clause, right? It cannot be a noun clause because it cannot be replaced by a pronoun. You cannot say it is difficult to reconstruct those, it. Okay, so this is an adjective clause. It's modifying. Same is true with 8. Well, what kind of documents? Documents that were written in Old English. Number 9, which cultural heritages that came with the invaders. And then 10, which sounds that have been lost. Those sounds that have been lost. Those are the ones we are interested in. So in 5.3, again, more with adjective clauses. We are just inserting the correct relative pronoun in the blanks. So number 6, we can say the reintroduction of Latin by monks. Whose work? So whose carries that possessive quality. So there's ownership here. In the 8th century, the British Isles were attacked by Vikings. Who? So who is attacked to people? Vikings are people, but there's not ownership here. Number 8, we have whom. Notice that when we talk briefly about whom, we said that whom follows as objects. So when you have a preposition from, it must be followed by whom. You would not say from who, you would say from whom. Number 9, we have who, the relative pronoun for people. And 10, again, we have whose for possession. In 5.4, combining these sentences, we talked about how this is done and how this is a common activity for young writers, young students. We said when there is a repeated noun, you can take the noun of the second sentence, the second clause, and make that an adjective clause. So in number 6, the repeated noun is Beowulf. So then we can turn that second one into the clause. So one of the best known literary works written in Old English is Beowulf. And so that second clause gives us more information, comma, which depicted the social conditions of the people at the time. And number 7, the repeated noun is the French. So we'll take the information from the second clause and insert it following the noun in the first. The French, comma, whom the peasants disliked, comma, occupied England. So notice with these first two sentences that we are setting the adjective clause apart with a comma, because this is extra information. It is not essential information to identify the noun. Number 8, French words that covered matters of government and law were added to English during the French occupation of Britain. So that clauses never have a comma. That clauses never have a comma. So skipping 9 and 10, we'll look quickly then at section 5.5 and determining the punctuation. So in number 6, we are adding commas. We're adding commas because there is one Middle English. We do not need this information to identify the Middle English, right? If we had many types of Middle English, then we would need that information to identify which one, but we don't. We are only giving extra information about one thing. So Middle English, comma, which people spoke from around 1100 to 1470 CE. So extra information, add commas. 7, spelling varied greatly in Middle English, comma, which also had dialectical variations. So notice, this is just like, oh yeah, there's more information here, right? It's adding more. It's not essential because it's simply adding more. Add the comma. The same is true with number 8. Again, there is only one Middle English. We are just giving more information about this one thing. It is not essential to identify the thing. So there must be commas. Number 9. No, there are never commas with that clauses. Okay, we never use a comma with a that clause. And then we have extra information in the which clause. Same is true in number 10. There's one Geoffrey Chaucer. There's one guy. This guy who wrote the Canterbury Tales. This is just extra information about one dude. This is not helping us. They're not 10 Geoffrey Chaucers and we're trying to determine which one. This is just extra about one person. So you must have a comma.